We're discussing the true doctrine of hell, whether or not it's in the Bible or not. Join us each Tuesday and Thursday night at 7 p.m. for these classes. We look forward to having you, and God bless you as we start. Good morning, and welcome back to our lesson on the revelation of hell. And someone asked me, why did I call it revelation of hell? Isn't a revelation supposed to be something mystical that comes to you in your mind, that illuminates your mind? Well, a revelation could also be an eye-opening understanding of what the true meaning of scriptures is also. That's a revelation as well. And this is one of those, I think 5 to 10 minute lessons that I'm going to give to you. It's basically primarily for pastors and theology students, graduate students, and people who have read the Bible or who have a pretty good Bible knowledge, or anyone who will go and study and to confirm the things that I say. I had to cut it brief because you know that in the time we live in, people are very busy and they just don't have time to listen to an hour-long lecture. So what I've done is compacted certain points in what I call a 5 to 10 minute lesson. And I try to put that lesson in 5 to 10 minutes and have compacted in it just about everything that would have been an hour lesson, but it's just on a point basis. I'm bringing it out. And then what you do is you go and you research and confirm what I put in that lesson, and you'll have the the basis of whatever was in the 55-minute lesson. So today, the lesson that I'm going to give you, and I'm going to try to do it in a 5 to 10 minute interval. Sometimes we go shorter than 5, and we go maybe sometimes we may go longer than 5 or longer than 10, just a few minutes, but it should be somewhere around there. And so we're going to get started with it, and it is today's lesson is on the unlocking the keys to unlocking the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. First of all, we want to tell you about the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, which is located in Luke, the 16th chapter, around verses 19 through 31. This was written by, this was a parable given by Jesus to the Jews. He was focusing on the Jews. At that time, Jesus was not focusing on Gentiles, and he was not speaking about Gentile salvation or eternal life or going to heaven or hell. That was not in the doctrine of Jesus, nor was it in the doctrinal background of those Jews that he spoke to. He was not speaking to Gentiles because Gentiles were not allowed in his audience at the time. His focus was on the Jews, and it was not about hell, because the hell doctrine was not known to the Jews. Neither did Jesus know anything about it. He didn't teach that. That at that particular time in history, the doctrine of hell was only out in the world of the Gentiles, like the Greeks and those people like that, the Greeks and the Persians and people like that, and those who studied Plato. So that was not in the realm of the teachings of the Jews and the Christians, the doctrine of hell. So that was not what Jesus was referring to. Many theologians try to say that Jesus referring to hell when he was talking to the rich man about the rich man and Lazarus. It was a parable to the Jews. It was not speaking of that. And so Jesus was trying to talk to the Jews, and he had as it is interesting how Luke, the writer, was a Gentile who was looking at this from the eyes of the Gentiles who had hopes of getting into the riches and things that the Jews had. So Jesus is speaking to the Jews, and he's trying to tell them that they are in a position of wealth as far as the things of Abraham are concerned. They've got the law, they've got the covenants, they have the prophets, they had the promises, the Palestinian promise, the Davidic promise, the promise of the millennial kingdom. They had the offer of God to have a relationship with them. They were chosen as a people out from all the people of the world. There was no people like the Jews. They were chosen by God. And the rest of the world, which was scattered at the Tower of Babel, were Gentiles and heathens. But after the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11, in Genesis chapter 12, God called Abraham. And Abraham is here a symbol of the Jews and all of the promises of God that the Jews have. And so this is the reason why in the parable Jesus said there was a rich man, and then there was a beggar who sat outside his gate. The beggar couldn't get inside the gate. The beggar didn't have access. And the beggar who was out there, his name was Lazarus. The dogs came and licked his sores. A dog is a symbol of an underprivileged, underhuman situation. So the beggar was in an underprivileged situation. He did not have access to the things that the rich man had access to. With these things that we're talking about the rich man had, we can read about them in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12, as the Apostle Paul looks at those things from a retrospective view. He said that the Gentiles were not privy to the commonwealth of Israel. In other words, the wealth that they had, the Gentiles were not privy to it. And so this poor man outside the gate, this Lazarus, is the same as the woman who came and asked Jesus if she can have the crumbs that fell from his table. He's the same situation as those Grecians who came to Jesus in John chapter 12 and asking, they wanted to see Jesus. And he told them, I can't come out to you. He said, until I be lifted up from the earth, then I'll draw all men unto me. What he meant was Jews and Gentiles will be drawn. So the focus of the Rich Man and Lazarus is on the Jews and their relationship and how they're abusing it and how they're not honoring it and how they're going to lose it. And there's going to be a great change in the situations. In St. John chapter 1, verse 11, he says, he came unto his own, and his own received him not. So he came to the Jews first, but the Jews rejected him. And when they rejected him, he said, and then to them he gave, his own received him not. Then he turned out, invited others, and to them he gave them the power to become sons of God. The Jews were just the sons of Abraham, but these that he called and replaced them with, they had become the sons of God, even higher than being a son of Abraham. And so this is what Jesus is saying and warning the Jews of, is the fact that things are going to change. You keep rejecting me, things are going to change. And those Gentiles that you call heathens, that you won't even, they don't even have access to me, they desire me. He said, they beg for me. Those Gentiles are going to be where you are, is the point he was trying to make. And he always had problems with them, even in Matthew 8:13, where he said that when the Gentiles came and begged him for healing, the Gentile centurion begged him for healing, and he healed him. He said, I haven't seen this kind of faith in all Israel. You Gentiles are going to be in. But at that point, he said, and the sons of the kingdom, which became the Jews, are going to be cast to outer darkness and weeping and gnashing of teeth. Another parable, the parable of the wedding feast, where Jesus talked about in the 22nd chapter of Matthew, where the Jews did not honor their place and all the riches that they had. The riches here are talking about the things that they had as the sons of Abraham, the promises, the Davidic promises, the promises of the Palestine and the millennial. All of that belonged to the Jews. They had the law, they had the prophets. All of that belonged to the Jews, and that's what Jesus is calling riches. And so they had all of these riches, and so they did not honor. They wouldn't even cooperate with it at the wedding feast. They wouldn't cooperate with it and wouldn't put on the proper garment. Therefore, they ended up getting put out of the wedding feast, which the wedding feasts were held at night and they were well lit at nighttime. But they were cast out of the wedding feast, which meant that they were out in the dark. They didn't have street lights back then, so they were in outer darkness, from the place where they really should be. All right. And so out there was weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's the same thing that's happening here with the rich man. Once he lifted his eyes in hell, and after he's been cast out, then he's going to be weeping and he's crying. It's a great remorse and regret that the Jews experience when they're put out. All right, now let's go back to the rich man and Lazarus. So what happens is the rich man dies and Lazarus dies. The symbol of the key to understanding the death is not in looking at this as it is an afterlife lesson about what happens in afterlife, but it is the death here is the end of their situation. It comes to the end of their situation, their status, their place, and their relationship as relative to the promises of Abraham, relative to the blessings that are the Jews now. Relative to that, they both die. In other words, so their situations end. What Jesus is talking about here is a coming change. And so this death is symbolizing the change. So the change takes place. And so Lazarus, when the change takes place, where is Lazarus at? Lazarus ends up in the bosom of Abraham. The bosom of Abraham is the place of the blessings and the favor of God to men on earth. It comes through Abraham. And so Lazarus is in the bosom of Abraham, and we find the rich man, and at first he was behind his gate, and the poor man couldn't get to him, but now he's outside of the gate. He is actually a long distance away from Abraham. That's what the gulf represents. It represents the distance that the Jews are from their promised place, their place of blessings. It is the gulf that is fixed. This is not about hell. It's about a gulf that is fixed between the Jews and Abraham, that which was theirs in the beginning. And so he lifts up his eyes in hell, the Bible says, but the original word there was the grave. So he lifted up from the grave. And so he lifts up his eyes from the grave. And when he lifts up his eyes from the grave, he looks and sees Lazarus afar off in the bosom of Abraham. And he's grieved about it. And the grief and the remorse is equal to the weeping and gnashing of teeth that they experience when they're cast into outer darkness. The outer darkness here is not talking about the hell that Plato talked about, and Augustine, and we've been preaching in church for years, simply accepting that without even researching this. But what it is that here, Abraham, the rich man is in grief, and he lifts up his eyes in hell. Now, hell here has to do with death. Okay, so his ends up in death. Okay, now the death is the death of the grave is the changing point. That is the changing point. That's what death represents here. It doesn't represent them going to the afterlife, but it's the point of the change, the point of the switch, the ending of their circumstance as it was at first, swapping the place of the Jews and the Gentiles. The Jews are now out, and the Gentiles are in. And that's what this is about. So the rich man, the flame that he's talking about here is the flame of remorse and regret, the deep feeling of remorse and regret. The torment here is the Greek word barbazo, which means emotional regret, not as if it's in a flame or somebody burning, and that's not the story at all. And if you had heard the story when Jesus told it, and that was not a part of their thinking about this hell idea, that was Platonic, that would not have come to your mind at all. This would have came to your mind. But we have been so inundated and deceived by what we call replacement theology. Replacement theology is the theology of the 1st and 2nd century church fathers who hated the Jews, hated them so bad that they began to write commentaries and lie on the passages that were to the Jews and said they were about heaven or hell or something like that, when they were not at all about that. They were about the Jews' relationship to their promises and to Abraham right here on earth, and how that is going to change when the time comes, when the life of the Lazarus is ended, and the life of the rich man is ended. It's ended by the death is indicating that as a symbol of the ending of that. So now we know that when we see Abraham in the parable, it's strictly talking about the Jews, because Abraham is the symbol of the Jews. And the rich man looks at Abraham and he says, well, tell somebody to go and have Lazarus come help me now. Now I'm in a bad spot. Now we're cast out. And Abraham, who is the symbol of the Jews, he is not a symbol of heaven. He is not a symbol of people who in the afterlife who have to go through Abraham to get in heaven. That's not Abraham's call. That's not what Abraham's for. God does that. Abraham is here because this is a parable about the Jews, a serious parable that's strictly about the Jews. That's why Abraham talks to the rich man and tells him, son. He calls him son because these are the sons of the kingdom. The Jews are the sons of the kingdom. And the Jewish man, he tells him, you had everything. You had Moses. You had the prophets. He said, and you wouldn't hear them. He said, now if somebody came back from the dead, you're not going to hear them either. And so what he's saying is that this symbol, Abraham, is the symbol of the Jews. Everything, every promise is that the Jews have is a promise that is connected to the earth, not to heaven. I just can't see how advanced theologians can take Abraham here to mean heaven when everybody knows, if you know the Abrahamic covenant, that all of the covenants and the promises of the Jews are connected to the promise of Abraham, which are all connected to the earth, which culminate in the millennial kingdom, which is a kingdom right here on the earth. Now, eventually they'll get to heaven, but they must complete an assignment of blessings and restoration here on the earth. That is the basis of Abraham. And out from the Abrahamic covenant comes the Davidic covenant, the Palestinian covenant, the Mosaic covenant. All of the covenants connected to Abraham. And this is what this parable is about. It is not about the eternal destinies of somebody going to hell, about somebody just because they're poor going to heaven. And Abraham's bosom is not heaven. And I'm sure that most of you who are astute or at least honest, you'll be able to see this. Thank you very much. The story of the rich man and Lazarus, the parable, is not about hell. God bless you. And as we study the Word of God and ignore what the replacement theologians put in these commentaries when they try to reduce our significance of the Jews and not see it, we can have our eyes open, and we can see these parables if we do not look at them in the eyes of replacement theology. God bless you, and we hope to see you again in our next lesson on the revelation of hell. Get the book for this series, Origins and Sources of Hell, by Dr. Lawrence Brown Jr. We cover all of the scriptures in the Bible that are claimed to be used as scriptures to support the doctrine of hell. Join us, get the book, and you'll see why we say that hell is from Plato and not from the apostles.